But that meant there must be a destiny where he survived and won, right? Otherwise, what was the point? And with that, the book's pages fluttered back once more to the beginning, and the clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game-changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Or so a scholar in the mountains had told him. Surely the weapon that banished the lost gods could defeat the Emperor. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert, as tempting as it was to explore ancient mysteries. There was a war going on, and also, his old friend Lupino needed rescuing. Of course, Reynardo had a pretty strong suspicion that Lupino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Reynardo really leave an old friend to the Ravens? Ah, Lupino. Apparently, the Mad Rabbit had sold a Pegasus that he did not exactly own. Lupino always wiggled out of trouble, given time. But he was out of time. Lupino's frantic message said that the Ravens were going to kill him for being a rebel spy. And that he had a clever plan. If the fleet reached him first, they'd string him up for that. Never mind the winged horse. Or so Lupino had told him over the far speaker anyway. Lupino had apparently managed to confuse the judge by arguing that he hadn't actually stolen a winged horse. He'd only sold it. But wait, where was the prison? The village was empty. Had everybody fled the Ravens? The Ravens had taken the town. Reynardo had seen villages emptied like this. All the people taken away to be sacrificed in the Emperor's secret rituals. Reynardo hoped the people were just hiding. Reynardo looked around the empty village. How had he ever imagined Lupino was anything but a traitor? Any honest rabbit would have fled with the villagers. Ravens were landing everywhere. The advance guard. He'd better get moving. If they got to Lupino first, they'd eat him for breakfast. Or a snack. Ravens weren't picky. If they got hungry, they sometimes forgot to interrogate their prisoners. Even top spies like Lupino. Well, unless he really was a traitor. Then they'd probably pin a medal on his chest. Lupino would betray him. But now Reynardo knew that. What would Lupino do if he knew that Lupino was going to betray him? Well, he'd concoct some crazy scheme, wouldn't he? That used Lupino's betrayal against him and it would blow up his face. Maybe overthinking this. That would be a first. Reynardo had learned so much about... what was it again? Dirty and bloody, Reynardo finally reached Lupino. The rabbit was practicing his shuffle. Reynardo recognized the cards. It was Lapino's favorite deck. Oh, I thought you were in danger. I am. The Ravens are coming. Oh, the prison thing. Right, yeah, see, this guard owed me 53 ducats, so we made a deal. They're very reasonable people, actually, for weasels. Now, I got a brilliant plan to kidnap Zenobia. We capture Zenobia, we find out what she knows, and that's the whole war right there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Capture the Emperor's greatest general, who also happened to be a deadly sorcerer and, oh, his only daughter? That would be worth it. On the other hand, he could still get to the core of the Sky Ripper, even if he couldn't get the whole thing. It must have great power. To make the Sky Ripper, the Transcendent Emperor had wrapped an armature around the eye of a god. Reynardo had already let that armature slip away to save Lapino's life. But even its core, the eye torn from a god, surely they could fashion a great weapon from that. The core of the Sky Ripper? Lapino's excited. That's an actual thing that we could just go and get. You've been busy. He sure had. Reynardo told him all the things he'd been up to. Soon they got to talking about old times, about wages they'd won and lost, and scrapes they'd barely got out of. It was good to be back with his friend. Reynardo grinned. He had a very good feeling about this. It's beautiful here, thought Reynardo. It was nice to be back with his old war buddy. All right. Lapino was a traitor. But still, he was good company. There was something sour in the air. Like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time. Where did that go to? Reynardo felt wrong all over. He could feel an almost palpable sickness in the air. If the land could have tumors, they would look like these monstrous crystals. The forest was quieter than ever. There were insects, a few birds. He didn't count the ravens. Reynardo smelled sick animals, dying bodies. No help. I'm getting a bad feeling about this. Reynardo thought. Maybe Lapino was right. Maybe he should have kidnapped Zenobia instead of coming here. Hey, welcome to Earth. Reynardo told the corpses. It was something he'd seen in a play once. As he held the radiant icosahedron, Reynardo felt queasy, like dozens of tiny worms were nibbling his insides. It wasn't healthy to be so close to the eye of a god. How could he use it? He could take it to the observatory. The scientists there could tell him how to harness its ancient power. But honestly, Reynardo ached to get away from it. He brought the core back with him to the Farfarer. But honestly, Reynardo ached to be rid of it. Tell you what, said Lapino. I'll take it to the observatory. You attack the Imperial Outpost. The Imperial Outpost was a vital communications node. Taking it could shatter the Empire's ability to coordinate. And it would be full of secret plans and maps and maybe even rebel prisoners. It was a good target for a hero like Reynardo. But what if this was a ruse so that Lapino could get the core into the hands of the Empire? Was Reynardo ready to take that risk? Maybe it was better if he brought the core to the scientists himself. Trust me, Reynardo, you won't regret this. I'll treat the core like it was my own baby daughter. As the Farfarer dived towards the Nexus, Lapino was jumping up and down with excitement. "Stop rabbiting around," Reynardo said. Lapino just stared at him. The moment the ship landed, Lapino leapt off the ship. As Lapino vanished into the wilds of the Nexus, Reynardo vaguely remembered Lapino had a baby daughter, didn't he? And he told her mother he was going out to get some Easter eggs, and he'd never come back. But Reynardo was relieved not to carry the core anymore. He was already feeling better. And who knows, maybe this time Lapino would get it right. And if Reynardo could take the outpost, he'd have access to all the Empire's communications in the sector. Right? This chest was filled with old concert t-shirts. And something useful. Reynardo caught his breath. His joints still hurt, but he couldn't feel the poison in his system anymore. He'd let the armature slip out of his hands to save his friend Lapino. Of course he had to let Lapino take the core. The rebellion needed every man doing his duty. And the rabbit would be no good taking on an Imperial outpost, right? Reynardo took the outpost with a song in his heart. Soon, he was stuffing his sack with key messages from and to the fleet. Then the far-speaker toad chortled a new message. The observatory had been sacked by ravens. Lapino and all the scientists had been taken to the mountains. Why? Why had he trusted Lapino again? And now the Empire had the core. Reynardo hailed the rebel base to warn them. But their far-speaker didn't crowd back. Was the base under attack too? Who knew what was going on at the base? But he knew what the ravens would do to Lapino if Reynardo didn't rescue him fast. Well, actually, he wasn't exactly sure. It kind of depended on whether Lapino was a traitor or not. Reynardo just couldn't bring himself to believe that. What are old friends for, if not to need rescuing every few days? Reynardo felt a twinge of doubt. Should he have gone to the base? No. Logically, wherever they'd taken Lapino was probably where they took the core, right? Oh, why couldn't Lapino have just, for once, not got himself captured? Was that too much to ask? He shouldn't be too hard on the rabbit. No, he meant well, and he was insanely brave. You had to admire that. really ought to put a railing on this thing, he thought. Where were they holding Lapino anyway? There was no sign of him or the ravens who'd captured him. Just rocks and snow and the usual scouts. No sign of the core either. Was this a wild rabbit chase? Oh, trust Lapino to screw up even getting captured. But what was this rebellion for anyway? Well, Lapino was useless. But he was a friend. If friends didn't matter anymore, what was the point of winning this war? Reynardo felt new powers ready to blossom within him, or something. Reynardo thought about the intel he'd gathered from the outpost. Who would he bring it to? Who even had time to read it? He felt like Tarzan. At the end of the mountain path, Reynardo came to a clearing. There was a campfire, raven feathers, and Lapino's lucky deck of cards. Well, that wasn't good. Reynardo hoped Lapino had not tried to cheat his captors at cards. Ravens were much better than weasels at counting, and they had a very poor sense of humor. Then, he saw what he had hoped never to see. Fresh scraps of rabbit fur. Ragged and bloody, ravens would eat anything. By Grabthar's hammer! Reynardo screamed at the sky. I will avenge you! The rebels had assembled their fleet. Ahead, the clouds were dark with Imperial ships. If he could reach the Emperor before the rest of the rebels did, maybe he could settle this without too much bloodshed. He set sail, and the Farfarer shot forward. Poor Lapino had never been a great warrior. The mad rabbit was good for a lark and a laugh, and a pint. The thought of ravens eating him made Reynardo furious. The way they were eating up the land, the way the Emperor was eating up the people with his new, bloodthirsty ways. He would make them all pay. This burning sword from the south was terrific for barbecuing sausages and ravens. come in handy in a pinch. There were stickers all over the platform for really hot lady foxes, with pictures, addresses and everything. Given up every objective to save his friend. He'd given up the armature, the core, the gem, and even Zenobia. He loved Lupino, he realized. Now the rabbit was gone. A hero looks out for his friends, even when they're gone. He would send Lupino an honor guard of ravens to serve him in the halls of the valiant. He would avenge him. He was sort of yanking his own chain, wasn't he? Finally, he reached the Emperor's ship. And there was Lupino, surrounded by ravens. He was alive. They'd eaten some other rabbit. "I'll save you!" he shouted with joy and flung himself at the ravens. "Oh, you shouldn't have," said Lupino when the last raven was down. Reynardo threw his arms around his best friend. "I had to come. I love you, man. You really, really shouldn't have," said Lupino. And Reynardo felt a rather sharp pain in his back. As he collapsed, Lupino took the dagger out of Reynardo's back and wiped it off on Reynardo's sleeve. "Why, you always have to be the hero. Brave Reynardo, epic Reynardo, super sexy Reynardo, and I'm sick of it." As Reynardo died, all he could think was, damn it, fooled again. And just like that, he was alive again, and back on the Farfarer, still fleeing burning Ubar. The book was still open before him. So, the book was a portal. It took you to the future, when your destinies would branch. He had failed and died 3 times, And he hadn't learned anything new this time. He'd done the same thing twice, yet expected a different outcome.